Hey everyone, so today I want to share with you a couple of different online banks that have some high yield savings. Now, I made a video a couple of months ago, but of course rates can change as they did based off of what I was looking at before and where they are now. So this is kind of an update, but I did add quite a few new banks that weren't in the first video. So if you watch that one, still stick around because you're gonna see some new companies. Now, what we're gonna do is actually go through and look at these different companies, but there's two big things I want you to keep in mind when it comes to going with an online bank. One, these rates will definitely change over time, hopefully for the better, but they can also go down. So just something that keep in mind on that part. But the other thing is some of these will also require certain stipulations when it comes to getting those rates. I'll point out a few here as we go through, but before you open up an account with whatever bank you're gonna go with, just make sure you read all the stipulations so you don't get charged any fees or you don't miss out on that higher yield savings, because again, some of them will have certain requirements to hit those. So we're gonna go ahead here and hop on the computer, but by any chance, if this is your first video with us, my name's Dennis and we love making investing videos and personal finance videos much like this one. So make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and join our community. You can also leave a comment down below to let us know if you found any other high yield savings with some really good rates. We'd definitely like to hear from you so that way we can check them out as well. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of companies, so let's go ahead and get started with these. Now, the first company we're going to be looking at is going to be Capital One. Now, Capital One has a money market account at over 2% yield. Now, the 2% does require $10,000 or more. So if you have a really nice emergency fund, this will be a great place to get started. Now, personally, I have a Capital One account and I absolutely love them for my checking and my savings. I will have a link to a referral bonus down below if you want to sign up. But overall, I think it's a good one. If you don't have over 10,000, it does have just a 1% when it comes to the regular savings. Again, these are things you want to keep in mind when you're looking at all these different companies. Next up we have is Discover. So Discover actually has right now an APY of 2.10% on your actual money, which is awesome. I'm actually interested in looking into more for Discover myself. I've heard some really good things as far as having them as a bank. You can actually look down here. I did plug in $10,000 in if you have it as like an emergency fund, and that would equate to $210.17 a year, which is definitely not the most in the world. Because keep in mind, this is just, for like an emergency fund, and at least that will kind of help keep you up with inflation for the most part. But, just overall, at least your money's not being lost at that point. So next up, we're going to have Citi Bank. For some reason, it's like the name is like off the side there. So I'm just going to write Citi. I'll do that little logo of theirs right there. Hopefully that looks good for you guys. So as you can see, their APY right now is at 2.36%. And they do have, as you can see down over here, it says, oh, I just clicked off of it. Right here, it says ways to avoid monthly service fees. So make sure you click on that and read all the stipulations so that way you don't get charged crazy fees for trying to get a higher yield, because it would be redundant if you got 2.36% but then paid $4.50 to even have the account. So just keep that in mind as far as what it takes to avoid those fees. Now, next up is CIT Bank. Now, CIT Bank does have up to 2.40%. It looks a little crazy because they said that the minimum balance is $25,000, which you might be thinking that's a really high, emergency fund, which maybe for some people it is, but for others it might be their 6 months or whatever. But the nice thing is they do also have an option where if you deposit $100 monthly, you would still get that rate. So if you are trying to build up an emergency fund and want a good yield, that's a great way to go, because you can just put $100 every month and start building up towards it. Now, obviously, it depends on how fast you want to get to that emergency fund if you don't already have it, but just keep that in mind if you're working towards that. So next up is going to be American Express, and funny enough, they normally require me to like refresh this page for some reason as if I was logged in or something, but I think we came back in on time. So right now, American Express has the APY at 2.1%. And you might be thinking, I had no idea American Express had online savings, and yes, they do. So definitely get that a check out there if you are interested. Next up is going to be Marcus by Goldman Sachs. And this one, as you can see, has a savings rate of 2.25%. So definitely a pretty good one there. Again, hit that learn more to just make sure with all the requirements when it comes to being able to utilize these different companies. Next up is going to be one of the very popular ones when it comes to the online, and this is going to be with Ally Bank. Ally Bank now has a yield of 2.20%, which is really awesome. One thing I do also want to mention as well too is if you have a bank and you're getting, let's say that 2.1% with, let's say, Discover, for example, it seems like it would be a lot of work to, open up a new account, get everything transferred just for that, 0.1% more on your money. Now, if you have, a regular bank with like 0.1% interest and you're jumping to 2.2, yes, that's going to be a huge difference in earnings that you can make. But just keep that in mind. I don't know if it's worth chasing that higher interest rate just for, that extra couple cents, and I love saving money, but also your time needs to be included when it comes to all that transfer. So just keep that in mind. But if you want to switch banks because you don't like the bank and the other bank happens to have a higher yield, then that's a win-win, but just something to keep in mind. I don't want you to be wasting more of your time. Now, next up is going to be T-Mobile. T-Mobile does have earnings up to 4%. It's a little bit skewed because you only get 4% up to a certain amount. Again, make sure you're reading those rules to be able to get it. But if you have that option, then you can start earning 4%. I believe you do have to be a T-Mobile customer to qualify for that. Of course, always read the details. So next up is a new one, and this one we actually didn't mention in the first one, and this is Wealthfront. So Wealthfront actually has a high yield interest at 2.51%. So that's a pretty high rate in comparison to a lot of other ones. And they also do like investing and a whole bunch of other things as well too. I'm actually kind of interested in this one as well, as far as just looking into maybe housing my emergency fund, but we'll definitely see that down the road if that's a possibility. So next one on this list is SoFi. Now, SoFi is also now getting into banking essentially, and they are pretty big when it comes to, refinancing your student loans and personal loans. But they are going to have what they call SoFi Money, where you can earn up to 2.25% and no fees on your account, which most of these online banks do avoid a lot of those fees that normal banks do charge. So just kind of keep that in mind. You're getting a lot of the great benefits that most online banks do have. And then next up is going to be Varo. I believe that's how you say it, Varo. So it is starting at 2.12%, and then you can start earning up to 2.8% depending on your balance. This one, it shows it's over 50,000, which that would be a lot to have just sitting around, not being like invested or used for anything, unless it's there for short term, but that would be nice. Next up is going to be E-Trade. So E-Trade actually is also new on this list as well. So they are a trading platform if you're not too familiar, but they do have now a premium savings account at 2.1%. So the cool thing about this one is if maybe you have the trading platform where you're trading on that actual brokerage account, but you want to have a savings there as well so you can kind of transfer intermittently, you can do it that way and get that 2.15%. Now make sure that you check out what the requirements are for waiving that $10 a month, because again, why would you want to pay money to have your money sitting in an account to try to earn more? It'd be redundant. So next up is Barclays, and this one is right now at 2.20% for their APY. So that one is actually pretty high up there as well. Again, no monthly fees, no minimums on this one at least, which is really nice. And then next up is going to be HSBC, and they have a 2.3% APY. So pretty good APY so far on most of these banks, especially again, if you're going from like a traditional bank where you're getting like 0.01, 0.09% and jumping up all the way to 2.3%. That's a pretty high jump there. Next up is going to be Synchrony. And Synchrony right now is at a 2.25% with no balance minimums, which is really awesome as well. I've been hearing really great things about Synchrony, looking into them a little bit more as well. So next up is going to be PNC. So PNC has a 2.35% APY on their online banking. Again, make sure you are checking with the requirements with these banks. I'm stressing that because I don't want you to open up one of these banks and lose out on that great savings if there are certain requirements you need to hit or certain minimums you need to have in the account as well. So comment down below if by any chance I missed any bank that you possibly know of and what their current APY is as well. I definitely like to hear from you guys in the community down below. I appreciate you watching all the way through on this part of the video. It really supports the channel. If you want to keep on watching more content, check out this video right over here. Make sure you are subscribed to True Financials, and I'll see you in the next video.